Hi everyone. Welcome back to Costume Co. And today I'm doing another costume designer interview, and I am welcoming back Ellen Falguiere. She was here before with her other movie that she did recently, and today though we're here to talk about The Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. And Ellen, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me back. It's such a pleasure to be here to talk about Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. It was such a beautiful movie, and I'm so excited to be here and talk about it.
Yeah, and Ellen is actually coming in to us from Paris. She's at the Olympics, so she's at a hotel. But hopefully, but everything. I think we have a good connection, and we're gonna have a nice little chat about the movie. So, and also, it just came out in theaters. Like in Canada, it came out July 4th, I believe. But it has sort of international. Is it an international release, or where can people see the movie?
Well, they can see it at AMC theaters. And as far as I know, it's an international release. I'm not sure what the other names of the theaters are worldwide, but eventually it'll also be streaming on Amazon. But it's been in the theaters for quite a while now, so
Okay.
it's got a huge, successful release.
Yeah, and it's got very good reviews on
Very good
online
review.
as well. Yeah, so that you must be very proud.
Yes.
So anyway, so just start. So what drew you to this movie? You've been working in costume design for a long time. And so what drew you to Sound of Hope, and what was it about? Was it the true story nature of it, the script, or something else that attracted you to it?
I think it was that it was such an unusual feel good kind of movie that was funded by the Global Orphanage Fund. It was actually all funded by donations. And I thought that that was such an unusual project. And I met Josh Weigel and his wife Rebecca, who wrote the script, and he was going to direct it. I read the script; it was a beautiful story. They were talking about the actors that the Weigels were looking at to play the Martins. And I didn't know the story. It was based on a true story and they were telling me about it. And I just fell in love with the story. I thought it was such a great movie, feel good movie.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about it before, before watching the movie. They were saying that, Oprah Winfrey had talked about this true story. So you weren't aware of the story before doing the movie or before taking it on as well?
No, I was not aware of the story, and I started to research it. And this happened in the '90s, and Reverend Martin was on hard copy Oprah. He was interviewed, and just the story about how him and his little community adopted 77 children out of the foster care program. And it was a one horse little town, basically a stoplight, just out in the middle of nowhere, country little town, and how their kindness and their way that they went about adopting all these children put them on the map. So it was just a really beautiful story, and I was just drawn to it.
So can you tell me about your process of designing the costumes since it's a film based on a true story? And how did you approach the historical accuracy of the story?
Well, the first thing that I did was when I got hired, I read the script and I broke it down. I also wanted the phone number for Reverend Martin, and he happened to be in California. And I met with him and took him to lunch, actually, and asked him to bring me his robes. Because when I was looking at, Josh had sent me videos of the church, Bennett Chapel Church sermons, and he sent me some footage of that. So I was watching his sermons and the way that he was acting in the church. And he had a very different style of preaching. And he also had these really interesting robes that he wore as a preacher that I hadn't seen anywhere else. So I asked him to lunch. We sat down. He brought me pictures of the Martins, of his family, and of the kids and the community. And he brought me his robe. a couple of his robes, and we talked about his costumes and what he does, the process of getting dressed, and what kind of and he had his robes for a long, long time. So I use those as my inspiration and a pattern actually, and then I that's kind of where I started.
Yeah, I have your one of your mood boards here. Um, I because I'm assuming he gave you these pictures to create your mood board.
Some of those pictures I found online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're from the 90s. And then some of the pictures he gave me. But a lot of these pictures were family portraits, family photos, things that he had, pictures from that I had captured, screen grabbed from the footage of his sermons in church.
Mm-hmm.
So I just loved his style. This top picture in the right-hand corner,
Sorry.
he wears these like members only jackets,
Oh,
and then he
okay.
wore a lot of vests. So and then these robes have a lot of piping and they're very long, and then they have a stand-up collar, and then he wears um, like a clergy shirt underneath the robes. So, and then he wears suspenders underneath those robes to keep his pants up because he's very active. He moves around a lot. He's super physical and emotional, and he really brings that down the house when
Yeah, it
he's
was funny because I was
preaching.
saying I watched it with my husband and I said, "Oh my gosh, I could see why people would want to go to church because it's so entertaining. There's a band,
Yeah,
he's up, he's dancing around, his wife is singing, and it's just like it's like going to an event, right?" And then my husband said, "Yeah, and it's also really social for sure." So if more
yeah,
churches were like that,
yeah,
I think more people would go to church.
exactly. Yeah, it was really a lot of fun to research it for sure.
Yeah, and I've got some of the pictures here, just behind the scenes of you working on the actor in his robes. And the other thing I noticed, they're very, very bright. The colors really pop. And so
Yeah.
here's a few here, and then I guess because it looks like they've got slits so that he can like actually physically move.
Yeah,
There's
they have
a lot of room.
yeah, that, actually yeah, that was actually Reverend Martin's real robe, and
Oh,
I, put some extra gussets in it,
mm-hmm.
those white panels in the robe, just to add a little color and make it not so dark, and then I added a lot of the trim, just to the cuffs and the collar, just to make it a little bit more interesting and two-dimensional, and I wanted the movement in the robes, so, uh it just made it a little bit more movable.
Mm-hmm. So, now, well, the first thing I thought when I saw this movie is, oh my gosh, there's so many costumes. First of all, we're dealing with like several. I don't know what the timeline is. Like like we started in the 90s. How many years are you covering from like the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie?
End of the movie, probably I would say 4 or 5 years, 4 or 5 years, early 90s. But the thing is I backdate
Mm-hmm.
the costumes because there's really no department stores in Possum Trot, Texas. There's little tiny boutique shops. There's probably secondhand shops, and they've had their clothes for quite a while. So even though it is a period movie, I kind of wanted to make it timeless in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and also um, a little bit ND, if that makes sense. Period ND, I'm going to call it, because it was like 90s, but I just kind of romanced it a little bit in terms of applying it to the story. I didn't really want it to be so trendy 90s or a specific like Fresh Prince of Bel Air
Yeah.
or
Yeah, it
TLC, or I grabbed things from the trendier times of the 90s, but I didn't want to get too trendy.
yeah, it felt more grounded and real, like realistic. as opposed to
Exactly.
what we think is in pop culture, I suppose.
Exactly.
Um, so in of your show notes, this is you designing 400 costumes for the main cast and over 100 for the background. That must have been like a colossal, like, task for you to do. So can you walk us through a little bit some of the logistical challenges you might have had, like just doing that many costumes?
Well, yes.
Like, first off, you must have had hopefully you had a team of
Yes,
helpers and
yes, I
makers.
did.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
I had a great team. They were fabulous. A great costume supervisor. I had two assistant costume designers. I had set costumers, a coordinator, and people in the office. A wonderful tailor, seamstress. But my process basically is I had to actually do boards, which are different than costume concept boards. I actually made these big boards and divided up all their costume changes on the board, which I used as like a physical tool just to keep everything organized. But also after the fittings, I print out all the photographs and I kind of slot them in to match the scenes so that I can also see the arc of the characters and
Hmm.
how it all lays out and mapping it all out as far as the color palette goes. So that is a big, big process because Nika King had over 45 costume changes. So did Demetrius Gross, who played the Reverend, who did a fantastic job. But one of the biggest hurdles was the fact that the actors changed after a week of shooting. So I had already done a set of costumes for the first actor and the first actress that were
Oh,
playing
sorry,
the
they
Martins.
changed
They
after.
changed the actors. Yes,
Oh,
they
you're
changed the
kidding.
actors. There was just creative differences as
Oh my
far
gosh.
as yes, there was creative differences. So the actors and the director parted ways, and the movie actually shut down for 3 days to regroup. And Nika King, who was actually in another role, became the first lady. And then they had flown in another actor to play Reverend Martin. And so basically, they shut down so that I could regroup because the actors were very different sizes. And so they just had a lot of logistical changes. But for me, it affected my department the most.
Hmm.
And basically, I had to redo all the costumes for the leading man and the leading lady. So that was a huge challenge for me to overcome and redo all the costumes for number one and number two on the call sheet. That was big.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
crazy. Oh
So
my
it was
gosh.
probably even more than 400 costumes in the
Yeah.
sense that I had to redo the costumes for the number one and number two. But
But also budget wise, like, I mean, how were you able to were they able to get some more funds for you, like for your department?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, I had to budget some more money in, and of course they understood
hmm.
the hurdles that I had to you know, get over to make it happen for them because, I didn't want to be the only reason why we shut down and hold camera. I wanted to get us back up and running as soon as possible. And so I just, me and my team, we just really, really had to hustle and throw more money at it and get everybody up and running. So it was a big challenge, but it was a wonderful change. I mean, as soon as we got everybody up on set and started shooting again, the energy on the set changed and it just turned out to be a fantastic choice. So I was really, really happy about the change, even though it was really hard on me.
Oh yeah, and then, well, and also because the actor who's playing the new Reverend, he fit into the Reverend's robes. Like you were saying, you ended up using his real robes, so you were able to, they fit the
Oh,
the
no,
new
no.
actor.
I had to recut the
Oh,
robes.
okay.
Thankfully, it was early enough days where we hadn't filmed any of the church scenes. Those were later in the schedule.
Oh, okay.
So we luckily had not cut the pattern yet for the robes. And so when we had gotten Demetrius in, we measured him. And as soon as I heard about the change, I had called my cutter fitter and said, stop what you're doing right now, stop in your tracks.
Hmm.
We're going to have to redo the patterns and things like that. So I ended up having to buy more fabric and getting it, FedExed in from LA. With some of the favorite colors of the robes. So it was luckily not, some of them were not cut yet, but I did make about 4 robes. 2 of robes I used from the Reverend, but I had to alter his robes to fit the new actor. And then the other ones, thankfully, were not, the fabric wasn't cut yet.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know we touched on the 90s fashions a little bit. By the way, did you shoot on location in Possum Trot? Did you go down
Yes, we
there?
shot
And
in Macon, Georgia. We shot in which was also a challenge because it was about an hour outside of, over an hour outside of Atlanta. So it was tough to get crew down in Macon, Georgia, because most people really wanted to stay in Atlanta. The costume houses were also in Atlanta. So every time I needed to get some costumes, I would have to drive to Atlanta to pull the costumes. So that's why I had to have 2 ACDs, because one of them was driving back and forth to Atlanta to pull costumes, or you know, I'd have to get things shipped in, or I needed one for a fitting because we had over 75 speaking roles. So I needed, an assistant in the fittings with me while one was shopping. So
yeah,
logistically, it was very difficult to accomplish the amount of work that we had to do. I mean, I didn't have a big budget, and I didn't have, a huge crew either. So I was just really lucky to have 2 ACDs, but I really needed them for logistics and just the amount of costumes that we had, because each actor, the sisters alone, had 25 costume changes each. There was all the church scenes, and then their everyday life scenes, and it was just a lot of people. And frankly, I dressed a whole community, so it was
yeah,
basically dressing a village.
absolutely. Yeah. And because how many children? I think there were
Definitely.
16 or 18 kids or something. How many children did the
Kids.
grandmother have?
She had 18 kids. She had
Yeah.
18 kids. So yeah,
Yeah, and
but
she was giving her daughter a hard
she,
time because she only had 2. You need to have more children.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. She's like, "Oh, honey, you're just getting started." Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I was
So
chatting with a woman the other day who comes from a family of 12, and I was like, yeah, it's crazy. Like that's sort of crazy. I only have 2, so it's sort of like, oh my gosh. Um, Now, so I was going to touch on the children, like the foster children. I mean, there's children, but then there's the foster children as well. So the children's clothing plays a significant, role in illustrating their transformation. Like you're showing them coming from the foster system and then being placed with families and so on. So how did you design their costumes to reflect their journey in and out of the foster care system?
well, first off, the scenes where they're in their sort of desperate situations. They're in their real homes where their parents are, they're a drug dealer, or it's just a really bad situation. So, I designed the clothes to be kind of dirty, or too big, or too little, or just I really had to show neglect and sadness with those costumes in those situations, that they were desperate situations, or that they were poor and that they were neglected, and it was just a sad situation. So the costumes there sort of had to reflect that mood and emotion. And then when they would get adopted, I wanted to show the clothing to be clean, and more current clothes that fit them well. And while they might not be of the super current trends, they were definitely a brighter color palette and happier. I wanted to show that they were happy, that they were in a good
Mm-hmm.
place. So I definitely, but I also wanted to make sure that it was real. So I made sure all the clothes were washed. And that was another aspect of the film, that we would buy clothes and we would just have to age them down a lot because I wanted them to look like clothes that were possibly bought in secondhand shops or clothes that were bought in, Sears, J.C. Penney's, just those kind of everyday middle America clothes. But we had to age everything down, wash everything down. And we also had to have a lot of doubles because of the kids. So, you
Yes.
never, they're getting dirty or they're playing or they're going to school and then they grab them out of school and go to this, or they have a stunt double or a stand-in, or they only, because you can only film with children depending on their age, maybe like 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day, and then they have to swap the kid out. So it's just very, those kids, by the way, were fantastic actors. They were amazing. Little Tyler Asher, he was so cute. He was such a good little actor. Just all of them were amazing. And also
Mm-hmm.
the actress Deanna that played Terry,
Oh,
she
yeah.
was fantastic. She's actually from England.
You're
So
kidding.
she's a
I got a
British
picture of
actor.
her here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They they brought her in from England. They
I
searched
had no
high
idea.
and low for her.
That's
So
amazing.
she had a lot of range and a lot of depth, and she really did a fantastic job. I was so impressed with her.
Hmm. And here she is actually with her stunt double, as you're mentioning the stunt double.
Yes, yes, it had to get in the lake and do the water scenes
Hmm.
and a lot of the stunt double driving and all of that. So doubling those costumes, we needed, I think, maybe 8 or 9 of those, that
Hmm.
same exact costume of those dresses, the shirts and the jeans, the shoes. We needed multiples, the jacket. So that took a lot of work, and then we had to age that all down in stages.
Hmm.
So she started out clean and then was getting in the car and then running through the woods and then got in the water. That was a very important costume for me because it was uh, started out, actually that story day started out in the high school. So she starts out,
Yes.
yes, and that costume had a lot of layers to it and it evolved.
So, do you want to tell me a little bit about some of these stunt double costumes that you had to do for Terry, like her white dress, for instance, that she goes down to the lake in, and but also it was a whole day, right? A whole day of outfit you were telling me.
Yeah. So the costume starts out when the kids are going to school, and Terry has on a t-shirt and a little overall dress with little Daisy Duke shorts underneath, and she's sort of got like a little shirt wrapped around her waist, and her backpack in the left, just to kind of cover up the fact that she's wearing Daisy Dukes. Which there's an earlier scene when the reverend tells her to, take those shorts off because they're too short. So she wants to, she's rebelling. So she goes to school with the shorts underneath the dress, and we take the dress off. She drops the shorts in the bathroom scene, which kids, you cannot show them taking off clothes. So we had to creatively come up with a way to, just drop the shorts behind the the bathroom stall to make it look a certain way and just kind of lift the shirt up and do things. You have to be very careful with kids of a certain age. So we had to creatively kind of choreograph that scene with the clothes. So that was really interesting to work out with the director and the DP of how to accomplish what we were trying to say. And then she gets in trouble. She goes home and then she puts on jeans, puts on the baptism dress,
Hmm.
and then grabs the yellow jacket. So costume, that costume, we had to have several. we had to have about 10 of those costumes to do all those things because we had a driving double, then we had another double running through the woods, and then we had to have a water double that could actually wear a wetsuit underneath all of that in the water. So it was three different doubles.
Wow. Did
So
they hire an adult double for her, or was it also a young person who was doing the double?
it was an adult double
Hmm.
that we had to find her size.
Sure.
So
One of the things I was like, when she goes down to the water, I was like, oh, I was so glad she took off her jacket before getting in the water because my first thought is, oh my gosh, she's going to get hypothermia. So when I saw her take off her jacket, get in the water to baptize herself, and then come out and put her jacket back on, I was like, oh, smart girl. Because, I was immediately thinking if she went in there with her jacket, also just the weight of the jacket might have been, because there was an earlier scene, I think, that talked about that she couldn't swim, if I recall.
yeah, she did not know how to swim.
Hmm.
So that was a point in the movie. And plus, we also kind of wanted the jacket to be found first. We didn't know exactly how they were going to edit the story, and Josh had wanted her to had wanted Donna to find the yellow jacket on the shore somewhere
Ah.
else. So that was kind of the reason that she was taking it off, but that Donna and so I didn't know how that was going to actually work out in the editing room with the filming. If they were going to come across Donna was going to come across a yellow jacket, and then we thought like, oh, maybe she had died or something. So it was like building a story point
Hmm.
that she takes the jacket off. It was scripted that way. And then she goes into the water, and you also don't really know what she's doing at that point. You don't know if she's going to baptize herself. You don't, I mean, you think she is, but she's so upset that you think she might be maybe killing herself.
Yeah.
So sadly, but I mean, it's just one of those, moments in the movie where you're just not quite sure which way this is going to go.
Hmm. I was pretty sure, like, this is maybe from a storytelling point of view, but when the kids go down to the water, I was pretty sure she was going to go back to the water again and baptize herself. I just, because when her mother is taught, like, when they're watching the people actually being baptized in that large bathtub, and her mother said it washes away all your previous sins and, you're renewed and all that. So I thought, I kind of felt like that was a little bit like, of some foreshadowing. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how I took it at any rate. And I was very concerned for her. I thought, okay, even if she is trying just to baptize herself, I still was concerned for her because of the fact that, like I said, she could have gotten hypothermia. It felt like it was the fall, or, it could have gotten dark and she couldn't have found her way back, or, there were a lot of other threats I felt. But I didn't ever feel like she was going to kill herself. I don't know why.
Yeah, I didn't think she would either, but you just don't know what's going to happen in that situation because she's driving a car, she hits the
Mm,
stop sign, she crashes the car, she gets out, she's very upset. So there's an element of danger and suspense in that whole sequence as far as her, just trying to get away and figure out what it is that, she's emotionally trying to overcome with her feelings and resolve within herself. And I think it's just a really important scene too, because that costume, she's going in the water, she's confused. I love the fact that the costume, it's like the jeans, the t-shirt, the dress, the jacket. She doesn't really know what she's doing. So the costume is a little crazy, but like she
mhm.
is at that moment. So I like that it reflects that she's so, not quite, she doesn't really know what she's doing. And
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say, so when she goes to school, I was like, I saw, okay, I went to a Catholic school. So I would go to school. The girls would go to school, leaving home and just looking normal. Then they would immediately go to the bathroom, just like Terry did, do their hair, do their makeup, roll the skirt up like how you did with her shorts. So I was like, that was, and because I went to high school in the 80s, it was completely relatable what was going on there. But at the same time, I felt so awful for her when she's walking down the hall. And what a horrible moment for her when she's walking down the hall and her sister's friend says, oh, your sister's a slut or whatever,
yeah,
just that whole. scene just made me just feel so like so awful for her.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely a story point. But that, you know, all those kids in the high school, it was that was a fun scene to dress. All the
Oh,
different
okay.
fashions in the
Yeah.
'90s. It was so fun to do that. All the kids with the baggy cargo pants and the shorts and the t-shirts and just all the different kids. That was like my one moment that I got to show some trendy things going on that were happening in the '90s, and you know, a little TLC and a little uh, kind of, influences of the current trends going on in the '90s. So that was really fun for me
Yeah.
to
Yeah, and
do
as
that.
well, I've got some group shots here of the congregation at the church. Like, so you had to do, you had to dress all the background, but you also actually, Reverend Martin is here. I have a picture of him and his wife here. So they were actually in the movie.
Yeah, they were in the church, and a lot of the Donna's sisters were in the church. The real Diane, the real Donna Martin,
Mm,
the real Brenda, the real LaDonna actually was in the band, and she was playing the organ. So she was the
yes.
organist in the band. So it was great, and they actually bust in. Uh, all of the background were bussed in from Possum Trot, Texas, and that's the real Bennett Chapel church congregation.
Oh, wow.
So I told them to bring clothes, but then we also dressed them in the night because they didn't have clothes from the '90s.
Hmm.
So we actually dressed all of those people, and we did over a course of a couple shooting days. We had to do 7 different Sundays, 7 different church story day Sundays. So we had a lot of costume changes with the whole entire congregation. And they were really amazing. But they would get up and sing, and they would, wave their hats. I mean, you couldn't have hired professional background to even do that because they were the real Bennett Chapel people. And they just did what they naturally do.
Yeah, like, because I noticed a lot of them would just like put their hands up, or they would sing, or they would call out, just like naturally, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it just felt, yeah, it felt very, very real. So you did all those scenes like in a block, like you shot all of the chapel scenes in one block?
Yeah, we did. We did. We shot that because we had that location, that specific
Hmm.
location for 2, 3 days. So we had to bring them in, and we had a holding area, and we would change all their costumes
Hmm.
um, throughout the time that we had that location. But it was those were big days, and they were important. They were important scenes, and the sermons. So I tried to match the robes and the first lady's costumes with the sermons. So
Hmm.
when I made all the robes and I had the first lady fit in her Sunday's best costumes, this is a very typical outfit for a first lady in the Bennett Chapel Church, to wear these matching skirt suits, and it's also very
Hmm.
90s.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, and then I loved adding the hats, but I also love the scenes where she doesn't wear the hat, where it's sort of
Hmm.
really hard times and dark days and things like that, where they're really the chapel. Some of my favorite scenes is when the whole community is struggling. They're really struggling with the fact that they've adopted all these kids, and the sort of excitement of the having this new family is over with, and it's getting really hard. And that's when I kind of made the church scenes a little darker. I took away some of the hats because they're not feeling like, it's just a typical Sunday.
Hmm.
It's not they're not getting christened, no one's getting baptized. um, it's not Easter, it's not Christmas, it's just a typical Sunday, and these are reflecting of the hard times. But one thing that I also noticed when I was in Macon, Georgia, they have these little shops that are specifically for these outfits, these church outfits for the first ladies. And
Mm.
I would go in there and I would go shopping, and they would all look at me like, "What are you doing here?" And because I'm like, I'm not a first lady. So I would go into these shops and they would have these amazing outfits with these hats. And it was so, I mean, it just ran the gamut. I mean, some of them were completely embellished with rhinestones and trims, and they were just amazing outfits. So I actually had to tone it down because this wasn't a wealthy chapel. The Bennett
Hmm.
Chapel was a poorer congregation. And there's the other church when Demetrius Gross goes to ask for the money at the other congregation, which is a much wealthier congregation. So I really didn't want to go too over the top with her outfits. I just wanted to go a little fuller.
Yeah. No. So how does we have a little bit of time left, but so how does working on a movie like this compare to some of your other work that you've done in the past? I mean, you actually, I was thinking your other movie, Spinning Gold, you have a chapel scene there too, if I recall. So how does this how do you compare working on this show to working on some of your other works or TV shows that you've done?
Oh, wow. This show was hard because there was so much. There was so much. And the children, the aspect of the children, and the fact that this was actually for a cause. This was just not making a movie that was going to be in theaters everywhere. This was actually a kind of a movement, and it was for a cause, and it just was such a moving experience to meet all the real people and all these children, and then meet the adopted people and their success stories. And when I was in Macon, Georgia, at one of the premieres, one of the at the premiere, it was mostly, if not all, 100% African American at the Macon, Georgia premiere. And one of the gentlemen behind me said, I was adopted. And he said, "You got that right." He goes, "You got that right, sister."
Wow.
He
Yeah,
said,
because
"You
there's
did
there
well." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much."
that's amazing.
So it
Because
was
there's a
about
sorry, go ahead.
showing, well, because for me, it was about telling the story. These costumes differed for me in the sense that they really had to support the story, that I really kind of wanted you to not really think about the costumes that much, that you were just really into the story, but you did notice them in terms of that there was a lot of costumes, or there was a lot of really interesting moments and things like that. But I really wanted to use the costumes as a tool to support the story. So all of these costumes to me were about fitting, supporting each one of the scenes in the story moment.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna add that at the end of the movie, there's a call to action, like you can scan, there's a code, and then we actually see the real folks, the real people who were behind, this the story and where they ended up. I don't want to give any spoilers away if you haven't seen it. So but Ellen, so no, I know you're in Paris, you're at the Olympics right now. This is amazing. And you're having a wonderful time, but do you have any projects that you have been working on? Because from some of the pictures I saw, it looked like you were wearing a mask. So was this during the pandemic that you shot this?
Uh, it No, not during the pandemic. After the pandemic, but we had to be extremely careful because of the short amount of time that we had to film this in, and there were so many people. And there was a couple of people that had gotten COVID at that time where I was wearing the mask. And I just, anytime I come around number one and number two at that time, we shot this in the end of 2022, from August. I think I wrapped at Christmas. I think I started prepping in August, late August of 2022. And then we did reshoots in 2023. So it was in between COVID, at the end of COVID, but
Mm,
yeah, before the strike.
yes. So
Yeah.
do you have anything that you're working on that have been working on or that you plan on working on in the next little while?
I'm
Um,
in talks with a number of projects, but I have interviewed for several projects, and I have a couple of things slated to, happen later in the fall. So I can't really say what I'm
no, no,
working
that's
on
fine.
right
Well,
now.
hopefully we'll have you back for that. But before you go, can we show a couple of pictures of you at the premiere? Just because you
Sure.
look so beautiful. There's a couple of them
Oh, thank
because
you.
you have a couple of different outfits. So here's one with you. And I don't know where this
Oh,
is. I
that's
think
at
this
the
is the
wrap
wrap
party.
party. The wrap party.
Yeah, yeah, Nika and I at the wrap
Yeah.
party, and she is such a dream to dress. She is so beautiful and
Mhm.
talented, and it was just my pleasure to dress her.
Now, I wasn't familiar with her, but she's in Euphoria, I understand.
Yes, yes, she's in
Okay.
Euphoria.
Okay. So any Euphoria fans will know her. But yeah, she did an amazing job. And the actor who played the Reverend as well, I thought was just brilliant. I loved him. And so here's you, and here you, and you're with Stephanie as well, who's your publicist. You
Yeah,
all look
yeah,
lovely.
absolutely. Yeah, and Nika.
And Nika,
Yep,
she's in the middle there.
yep, she is gorgeous.
Yeah, well, you all look gorgeous, by the way.
Thank
Here
you.
you are again. And I love that dress you're wearing, by the way. It looks like, is it open? Like, does it have discs in the middle?
Yeah, it's a designer called Stoud, and it's got gold discs through the middle and around the waist.
So, but a little bit of
So
skin.
a little bit of skin shows through. Yes, I was like, those. I need to spice it up a little
For
bit.
sure. You look amazing. And then here you are again with Nika.
Thank you.
Yeah, so was this is the premiere?
This was the Los Angeles premiere.
Mm-hmm. And then here you are. I think this is a different one because you got a different outfit. Again, a little bit of skin, but very tasteful.
Thank you. That's
Uh,
in Atlanta. That's
okay.
at Trillis Studios, and I styled Nika for that premiere.
Amazing.
Um, yeah,
I
she
love her
had
hair
a
there
little
too.
she had a little accident on her original dress that she was going to wear to the Atlanta premiere. She, I guess, something broke in her luggage or something like that, and so I ended up styling her very quickly for the Atlanta premiere. It was so much fun.
Oh, you all look great. And then
Thank you.
there's another one. I don't know if this is a different outfit again. You're
That's the
wearing.
Macon premiere. That's
Okay.
Macon, Georgia.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
Okay. What are you wearing there? Is it a jumpsuit?
yeah, it's a jumpsuit and a belt that's rhinestone and marabou feathers.
So pretty. Who's the lady on the left?
That is the line producer,
Hmm.
Allison Latz. So
And
she's a line producer. So she was one of the producers that called me originally for the project.
okay. And then Stephanie's on the right.
Yes.
And then here you are again. There's your lace jumpsuit there. I think it's a
Yes.
jumpsuit or is it a dress?
It's a jumpsuit. It's a
Yeah.
jumpsuit. It's
Yeah.
by Allison Olivier.
Allison Olivier. Oh, it's lovely. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, what's your favorite part? Do you enjoy going to these premieres? Like, is that sort of like when you're like, phew, everything's done and I can now like enjoy it? Like, how is that experience for you?
Yeah, I was really surprised at the Los Angeles premiere the first time that I saw it. I was amazed. I was crying, I was laughing. It was so much fun. I really appreciated Josh's call out too. He was like, "Ellen, where are you?" He's like, "Oh my God, we walked into a football field full of clothes, and it really just hit me hard how much work Ellen had to do." And he gave me a really wonderful um, congratulations and shout out, and I really appreciated it. And he was like, "I'm just so happy you didn't get on a bus and leave,"
Yeah.
because it was hard. There was a lot of changes, a lot of schedule changes, actor changes. It was just a big project.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about it and congratulations. And do you have any idea when it will be out on streaming? Like you said, it's coming to Amazon.
Yeah, I think that they are waiting till it finishes up its theatrical
Mhm.
release. I don't have an exact date, but I think maybe Stephanie might be following up with the Weigels to figure out, or Angel Studios probably will know. But I think it's going to be streaming everywhere on Amazon and a variety of platforms soon. But I don't think that they want to release that yet until the theatrical release is finished.
Yeah, because I know that there's been some things. Oh, it's so controversial, but having a movie in the theater and then they'll just axe it and then put it on streaming. So yeah, it's good to keep it in the theaters as long as possible.
That's right.
Well, I
It's
really,
go see it. Go see Sound of Hope if you haven't seen it. It's funny. It's beautiful.
yeah.
It's a moving story. It's a great movie, and ultimately, to me, it's about love. I know it has a lot of things about Christianity, and it's really, to me, ultimately about love. It's not necessarily a religious movie. It's about religious people, but ultimately, it's about love.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't get that at all. I didn't get that sort of feeling
Yeah.
that it was. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I watched it with my husband. We really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to
Thank
me.
you.
Really enjoying watching your career unfold, and I'm very excited to see what you're going to be working on next. And I hope you'll come back and talk
Oh,
to
I
us
would love
again.
to.
Yeah, it's
Thank
so
you
much fun
so
getting to
much.
chat with you. Yeah, you as well. Well, thanks
Thank
everyone
you.
for spending time with us, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks again.
Okay,
Bye,
thanks
Ellen.
again. Bye bye.